So yeah, it's 7:05 on August 7, and I'm here with Ian Shimizu, and my name is Christian Shumitsu, so which is very similar in Japanese. Sometimes when I say Shumitsu desu, people actually ask me, Shimizu-san desu ka? So first of all, today we want to discuss utilizing ecosystems for saving forests. That's a very interesting title, actually. And we will discuss the story, how we met, and who you are, Ian Shimizu, who I am, and how this all came together. So maybe first of all, if you remember how we met or who brought us together, maybe you can briefly talk about this, and then you introduce yourself and explain a little bit about your passion for the environment and what we are actually doing together right now.
Absolutely. There's a lot in that question. So maybe I'll start from the simplest part, which is how this all came together in regards to PDIE and WeMori. I think it was through a mutual friend called Adam Starcaster, who's a game developer. He put us in touch after Adam and I speaking about my passion for the environment and this project WeMori. So it was conceived at the time, and I talked to Adam, and he said, there's a guy called Christian who would be very much interested in your project. And we connected, and over the phone, I think it was at first, and I learned about PDIE from you. And it seemed like the perfect fit because WeMori was at that point, not much more than an idea that was starting to come into shape. And PDIE provided the platform for us to be more seen, be more known around people who have the resources to make WeMori a reality. Oftentimes, I think there's a big gap between the desire to realize a project and the resources that you actually have. And PDIE offers the resources for an entrepreneur like me to realize his dreams. So yeah, that's I think that was how the beautiful marriage came together. And here we are today speaking about this. I think maybe 6 months later. Yeah.
Since we started. I mean, the introduction was already a little bit longer ago. And you gave a few hints about PDIE. Maybe we should, or I should explain also a little bit about this. PDIE means Purpose-Driven Innovation Ecosystem. And I actually created my first startup around 2012. I went through fundraising activities, marketing activities, and finally we ran out of money. So it was very good lessons learned. It was an app for sharing experiences with great restaurants, shops, and leisure experiences called Kuchi. And from then on, I developed this passion for the startup community. And I also joined an organization as the Japan ambassador called the World Innovations Forum. And there were limits to what I could do. And what I also could see is that not all the innovation is leading to something good. So my biggest passion was to find really entrepreneurs and innovation which really solves problems. And we have a lot of problems on this planet right now. And these need smart solutions and purpose-driven solutions, like I call it. And a couple of years ago, I had the idea to kick off this purpose-driven innovation ecosystem. So the E is not spelled out or not pronounced, but it means ecosystem. And everything around us is an ecosystem, and a forest is, of course, an ecosystem. So maybe in the next step, you can explain what WeMori is and what your objective is with WeMori. Yeah, that would be great.
WeMori is an app that gives people the power to protect and restore forests around the world. I'm an environmental activist, and I have been for about a decade. And my exploration has been in converting people who don't know of the issues to a state of I know about the issues, particularly around the environment. And then for those of people who are in the I know, to bring them to the I act. That has been my exploration. And WeMori is the most recent project within this exploration. And what it hopes to do is to mobilize the global community towards taking forest action. And forest action is extremely powerful in addressing both climate change and biodiversity loss, which are two of the top 5 risks named by the World Economic Forum in their risk assessment of 2020. And so it's something that anybody can do to mitigate the impacts of climate change and biodiversity decline, and is what the app would realize for people anywhere as long as they have a phone.
Actually, I was missing one very important keyword, which in the beginning, when we met, we played this kind of elevator pitch several times. And there was, you never talked about an app. You never talked about an app. You said, I want to create a mass movement targeting the millennial generation to give them the power to act at their fingertips. And that's something which I thought is really powerful and interesting, because this movement kicked off by Greta Thunberg, for example. Greta Thunberg is not the first person doing this, and hopefully not the last person. But instead of just demonstrating, just doing a demo for something, now people who have joined these kind of activities, they could, even from their sofa, just using their smartphone, they can donate for the best forest projects in the world, right? Maybe you can get a little bit more specific and explain why your app is different and what your app will do, what we don't have at the moment.
Right. So what the users can do through our app is to browse through what we consider to be the best or the most important forest related projects out there, and tap them with their fingertips and fund those projects. Our projects are categorized into protection and restoration, and the role of the user would be to fund those, whichever projects that they liked the most. Or they could enroll in a monthly giving program, and we would allocate the resources based on the desires and needs of those projects on the front lines. So it provides a way for people to take really easy action. And this might not really seem like much, but it's actually quite a necessary improvement in this space. At the moment, I think it's very, very difficult to know which projects somebody should protect and should fund. And the funding process is oftentimes quite laborious or tedious, whereas the app would allow it to literally be just so easy that all you have to do is move the end of your fingers. And so
we have different bottlenecks for people who actually want to do something in terms of putting any kind of donation. What are the problem points? What are the pain points of somebody who would like to dedicate his time or his money towards meaningful projects regarding forestation or forest conservation?
Well, I think one thing we can agree on with the world is that people are very busy. And if one of the bottlenecks is to have to go through all the different pages and search all the different projects, and usually it's very confusing. It's very dispersed, difficult to find, and there's a concept called the paradox of choice. And the more choices that you have to make, the less decisions, or the more choices there are, the less decisions you will make. And so I think what's happening right now is that there's so many projects out there, so many initiatives out there, and you don't know which one is good or bad, that you end up not making a decision. So WeMori wants to solve this by first and foremost being simple in its approach, which is to protect and restore forests, and then to allow that, to put that in a very organized manner in a very accessible place.
And if I would be a skeptical person, I would say, yeah, so this WeMori, it looks like a nice app, but how can I know that they really choose the best projects and they really, what are your kind of filtering criteria for finding these projects? And is there a kind of screening process, how you identify these projects?
Yeah, so there was a screening process in the very beginning before we were creating this app at all, because the first thing I decided was to find a reliable partner which we can work together to launch with. And after looking at many different organizations, we decided to move forward with World Land Trust. One reason behind this is because they are an organization that's also very dedicated to protecting forests as well as restoring forests. Today, there's a big, movement or a swell towards planting trees, but a lot of the times they miss the point, which is that we need to be restoring forests. So first and foremost, we were looking into forests. And restoring forests is really important, but so is protecting forests, because the best thing we can do is to first and foremost prevent the forests that are being cut down right now from being cut down, because that's a larger source of carbon. And that's, once those forests are gone, we cannot bring those back. So
and there are actually a lot of threats, and at the moment we are in the midst of a global pandemic as well, and the Amazonian rainforests are regarded to be it's regarded to be one of the most important and most diverse ecosystems on the planet. And I just recently read an article that the Brazilian government ruthlessly takes the opportunity, and that more and more of this forest is actually sacrificed for vested interests of industry and agriculture. Have you heard about this? And in addition to this, we have also the forest fires, which last year were very tremendous, especially in Australia, but also around the world. What do you think that, so WeMori, what can WeMori do against this? And how can this organization, World Land Trust, for example, your okay.
sorry.
Just briefly, your image became yellow.
Yeah,
Maybe it's a good sign. So that was my question.
Yeah, so the issues around the forest fires, for example, well, the reason that there's so many forest fires happening nowadays is first and foremost because climate change is getting worse. And 25% or a large portion of the carbon emissions comes from deforestation. So first and foremost, by taking action against deforestation, you're contributing positively to a world where we can hopefully have less forest fires and less climate change. And after a fire would ravage somewhere like Australia or the Amazon, we would be able to help in restoring those areas by putting up projects that allow people to restore, or or it would allow people to fund projects that would restore areas like that. So those are ways that people can definitely participate, or that WeMori can have an impact. On the more political side of things, for example, around the Brazilian president, in effect allowing deforestation, we are working with partners who also have very strong elements in lobbying and political and enacting political change. So I think there are many ways that we can collaborate to bring the users on our platform towards taking other sorts of actions as well, besides funding our project. For example, whether it be signing a petition or sharing a video, or yeah, any sort of way in order to motivate the politics to change as well.
Okay. So let's roll back a little bit to where we started, and let's give another highlight towards the ecosystem idea, and maybe if you just can explain after we met what happened, and how actually our activities together could bring us that far where we are right now. That would be a nice and interesting story for everybody to hear, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of things have happened in the last 6 months, but I can say with confidence that the only reason that we've come so far is thanks to Christian and PDIE support. We had well, it's a very complicated situation that we went through. But first, one of the things that happened was that certain donations that were promised to us fell completely through because of the situation with COVID and the economic downturn that ensued. And so millions of yens that were promised to us in donations, and which was actually motivating the initial launch of the project, was completely gone. So it was like, we thought we were flying in the air with a magic carpet under our feet, and then it was just suddenly removed. And Christian at this point was working with us, and we were within the PDIE platform, and supporting with our fundraising. And the PDIE platform allowed us to meet other philanthropists and donors who provided the kind of the bridge funding which we desperately needed to come to where we are today. So if it wasn't for the PDIE platform, there would have been, no way for us to come this far. And here we are today on Kickstarter, raising funds to continue the project further. And it's really thanks to the PDIE that we've been able to arrive at where we are today.
Yeah, fantastic. There, for an entrepreneur, there are always moments in the life where you could believe that there's no way going forward, but that's also what an entrepreneur is about. That you actually find a way to solve your problems, and or you find a community and an ecosystem to reach out to, and you find somebody who loves your idea and helps you. And that's something, especially for the purpose-driven innovation ecosystem, that is not all about profit. We want to do projects which are meaningful, and which we believe we can change something in the world. And now that we talked about this, I would also like you to speak a little bit about the future vision. What at the moment, maybe you can outline a little bit the crowdfunding campaign and how this came together and where we are right now. And then you can outline the next steps and your bigger vision, where you want to be in 1 year, 3 years, and maybe 10 years. is that again maybe a little bit too complex of a question, or are
No,
you able to answer? Okay.
I'll do my best.
Yes.
So I guess the first part is how the crowdfunding campaign came together, and it connects to what you said earlier about the challenges of first and foremost, starting a project like this and being an entrepreneur. And I must say that us being a nonprofit has probably made it a lot harder for us to raise money in the first place, in a world where startup means for profit, and it usually means innovation ecosystems often take the form of funding the project in exchange to equity. Whereas in our case, that's not something we're able to provide. So PDIE has been a really unique platform that has believed in the social impact that we would be bringing to the world, and has supported us despite our inability to provide equity. And if you look around the world to all sorts of different innovation ecosystems or these startup communities, there's usually no space for nonprofits. And I don't. That's not. And I'm a believer of for-profit endeavors that can bring good social impact as well. But I think the world should be more open for innovation ecosystems that allow purely for impact innovation as well, such as us. And PDIE has provided this unique platform, which has been instrumental to us getting here. And the crowdfunding is a way for us as a nonprofit to get the support that we need in order to move the project to the next stage, which is to create an app. And that has been one of the very tough situations that we have had to face, which is that to build an app, you need money. But a lot of people, especially with the COVID situation, were reluctant to give money to a nonprofit startup. I guess from the perspective of the people with the resources, it looks like a project like us is just too big of a risk with no benefit. So it's been very difficult to get the support, particularly within the COVID. And what the crowdfunding allows us to do is to put it to the people, is to bring it to the people and show that this is something that people want to support, and allows us to collect the funds necessary to bring us to the next step, which is to build the app. And
bringing it to the people, with other words, creating a community, reaching out to different people from different countries who actually can support the campaign, right?
Yeah, definitely the community aspect. And but I think first and foremost, by putting the idea out there in this kind of way, you're able to test, okay, is this something that people like? Is this something that people want to support? Is this a good idea? Is this something that people are actually going to appreciate for existing? And it's a scary thing often for a lot of people to do that. But we decided to take to Kickstarter, and I'm very happy to say that about 560 people have supported us so far. And we've raised over 6 million yen at the moment. So this would, we are now able to move to the second step. And so the Kickstarter came from that background. And in the first year, we would like to really, we'll have an app within the next 3 months. We'll first of all go out with a beta test and then put it out to the international app stores. So it would be downloadable from all over the world. And then within the year, we want to perfect our communications. We want to broaden the choices that people can have in terms of choosing projects, and really make the product something that is really good. You can read 1,000 startup manuals, but usually what most of them agree on is the most important thing is that you have a good product. So we want to dedicate the first 6 months in a year to really add features, get data, add features, iterate, add features, sometimes maybe even subtract features, but really create a great product while growing our community and also engaging in creative collaborations.
Please explain a little bit in simple words what this app can do when it is launching. What is your, how do you envision the minimal viable product, which is the first product which you go to market with? What can you do with it, and how will you actually keep the audience stick to your offer, so that you also grow the audience and you really successfully create this mass movement over time?
Yeah, so in the minimal viable product, we want to have all of our primary functions within the app. The most primary function is that you can browse the different projects and fund them. The second most primary function is, or actually the most important secondary function is to be able to see what impact your funding has had. And the first thing that what we can promise with our minimal viable product is to share data, data-based metrics around the impact your funding has had. So being able to choose projects, browse projects, and then also see the impact you've had through funding these projects, this is something we can have definitely within our minimal viable product. There's a lot of different features which we're really excited about and want to add within the first year. For example, we are still playing around with the idea of a virtual tree growing as your donations grow. We also have the idea of collecting stickers every time you make a new donation. So there's a collection aspect. We also have ideas of sending daily tips to our users around how they can reduce their carbon, climate, as well as forest footprint. And we also are excited to add features, or actually we're excited to integrate with the content-driven style of marketing, which we want to provide through our platforms such as Facebook, Instagram, and our website. So how can this content-driven marketing also be integrated with how the app is existing is a question for us, and we'd like to integrate the two in the app.
And then, of course, there is one aspect which I think is very important, that different people have different passion, and different people identify themselves with different activities, and these activities lead to different brands, for example, which these people buy into, or which even there are some brands which appear in our daily life every day, and that you can actually connect your app with corporate sponsors and brands. And if people make a purchase, that you have agreements with different corporations that a certain percentage of this money, which is their sales and revenues, comes back to your forest conservation activities, right?
Yeah, so collaboration is okay. Yeah, that's a feature that I forgot to mention. We want to allow communities to have a presence on our app as well. This could be anything from, let's say, your local coffee shop to any large corporation. And what they could do is they could promise to, as you say, bring certain amounts of money towards forests. And they can have a platform, or they can have a page within the WeMori app where anybody can access at any time and see that, okay, this corporation has planted this many trees in these projects. And all of that is transparent and visible through our platform.
Okay. And one important question, if it's about NPOs, which is always occurring to people, is they want to know when they donate how much percentage of this donation actually goes to these projects. And they also want to know how you finance your operational cost. So maybe you can elaborate as far as you want to be transparent about this.
Well, transparency is, kind of our policy. So I really want to practice radical transparency. If you go into our Kickstarter, I actually just pasted the link to our 6-month financial strategy because I got tired of having to type out, we will be using this money in this way and that way. So I just decided to completely paste
Mm.
our profit and income or income or income and costs. But and I want to continue taking this approach to be, look, there's nothing to hide around the money. And regarding the question that you asked around how we would be financing ourselves, I think it would be two ways. One is independent philanthropy coming from corporations or individuals who wants to support the project, like the WeMori itself. And the other is from individual app users who, as app users also want to help WeMori exist as a platform. So we don't take, in other words, we will survive based on donations from people, companies, and users if they want to fund us. But we don't take any money from the project. So we don't want to take the direction of, we take 18% of, of a platform fee. So every donation you make, we take 18%. We don't want to do that because we're a nonprofit, and our role is to allow this platform to exist, which empowers people to take action. And so our model is not a model where we want to say, we're going to continue taking 13% from all the people. And that's going to allow us to fund ourselves or maybe overfund ourselves. The costs that are required to keep this project alive is not that much because it's just a team of 3 people or 2 or 3 people or 4 people. Of course, we'd like to expand, but the overhead is not that much. So we don't want to take the approach of taking money or taking a cut of the donations people make within the platform. So the platform will be available, use-free for anybody who wants to do good, who wants to take action. The only amount that we will take is to cover the payment processing fees. So even if you're a nonprofit, PayPal, Stripe, all these different payment organizations take 2.2% plus 30 cents for every transaction. And if we started covering those costs, we'd never be able to make up for that through our external fundraising. So we will have to take about 2 to 3% and other transaction-related costs that just have to exist. Otherwise, in terms of other overhead, we're hoping, or we are determined to self-fund ourselves without having to take money from our users.
Okay, so I think we got a very good insight into who is Ian Shimizu, what have Ian Shimizu and PDIE done together, and we have actually, because we just announced this event very late, but we have 2 participants. There is Yuki Kiho online, and there is Ame Kulkarni. I don't know if I pronounced the name right. So I would like to stop the live recording on Facebook, and then we can have a little bit of discussion, maybe for 10 minutes, so that we give the opportunity to other participants to also participate.